Hello and welcome back to Courtside. I'm Andrew Cohen, joined alongside by Sam Posman, Mike Randall. How you guys doing?
Great, Andrew. I'm happy to be back in person.
Doing fantastic, Mr. Cohen.
And we have a special guest today. Longtime listener of the podcast. Arguably our number one fan. Arguably. Mr. Jake Horigan. Welcome to the show.
Hello. I'm so excited and just can't wait to get into it.
Straight off the 412.
Yes. All right. NFL season preview today. It's a loaded episode. We're going to go division by division, talk about as much of the teams as we want to, for as much time as we want to. And then we have created a Courtside podcast team tier list.
We found something to agree on.
More or less agree on.
More or less.
And we'll go over that after we've talked.
Agree.
Yeah. And we'll go on about that after all the divisions.
Nice way to wrap it up, and then, of course, we'll send it off. But
Yes. Of course.
that's a joke.
Who would ever forget about that?
Whoever.
All right. AFC East. AFC East. Who do we want to start with in the East? I feel like the Bills.
The Bills.
Are they that good? Are they that good? Are they the team to beat in the AFC?
Well, the answer is yes. But obviously I have some hesitancy because we had this exact same conversation 12 months ago. And it was, this is just the Bills' year for the Super Bowl, and it's just going to happen, and it didn't happen because NFL oversight rules are stupid and college has it down. But that's my own personal gripe with the NFL.
College does not have it down.
Far from having it down.
You want the AFC Championship to get decided by a 2-point conversion contest?
Yeah, penalty shootouts are great, man.
The Bills just had to stop the Chiefs once in 13 seconds. That's all they had to do.
It is all they had
That's all they had to do.
But no, I think they are that team. But I also would have told you that this past year heading into the 2021 season. So there's a little bit of hesitancy, but there's nothing logical that makes me think that that's wrong.
Okay. Mike.
So I rightly didn't have them as the team to beat last year. I clearly and obviously had the actual team to beat, which was the Kansas City Chiefs. The only thing keeping me from it being the Chiefs again, and to a degree, it still is in that you're going to at some point have to get through Mahomes, but I do think that the Bills, as an overall roster and a team, not only is it starting to feel like they're kind of due, but they're the most well-balanced and loaded roster in the AFC. I think by a fair margin, at least among rosters with any sort of playoff experience, obviously because the Chargers don't have any. So I think they're the team to beat. I have a bit of a hard time saying that because the AFC has run through Mahomes for 4 years, but expecting a little bit of regression, we'll go with the Bills as the favorite for now.
All right, Jake, what are your thoughts on the Bills?
I don't have too many. I mean, they dog-walked the Pats, and that's
true.
fair enough. I was really up on the Dolphins last year and, loved what they were doing, and I am falling in the same trap again and love what they're about to do, but they also they could be about to finish third in their division.
Yeah. See, the thing with the Bills, and Sam's right, every year it's like there's a new group of people that say this is the year the Bills have arrived. And at what point do we just say, yeah, they're a good team? And I feel like the thing, too, and we're going to obviously get into the AFC West, I think that's a huge factor because the AFC West is loaded, and I think everyone kind of has the assumption that those teams will just beat up on each other, and the Bills are just going to take the first seed almost by default, and they're that good. Is Josh Allen the MVP favorite?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Easily.
Yeah.
I agree.
And I think for the people who want to argue that the Bills, that it's time, their time to arrive, or they won't arrive, or it's tricky for me because outside of them losing one of the greatest playoff games of all time in spectacular fashion, I personally think they dog walk the freaking Bengals if they play them the next week. I don't think that game's even competitive. They win by at least 10 points going away. They do what the Chiefs set themselves up to do, except I think they closed the deal. I think Kansas City got too comfortable. Cincy had their number for whatever reason, but I think the Bills were 13 seconds away from a Super Bowl trip and potentially championship. So I already view them in that light. They've made an AFC championship 2 years ago. I think they very well could have made a Super Bowl last year. So I think they have the experience. They're not a team to me that I worry about shrinking up late in the postseason anymore.
Okay.
It was at once a concern. It's no longer that. So if they stay healthy, they have home field advantage, which I expect them to have. It's going to take a great performance from one of these young, borderline legendary quarterbacks to get them out of the tournament, I think, at the end of the season.
All right, so I think we kind of all agree the Bills will run away with the division. Let's talk about the Dolphins. So you're a big Mike McDaniel guy. You're liking what's going on there this year.
I am. Yeah, I mean, you gotta double team Tua because he takes a safety just because he's fast. Then Jalen Waddle just is able to work.
Double team Tyreek Hill. You said Tua.
All right, you're right.
We got you.
So yeah, I mean, he's gonna have one-on-ones, and I think people are way too quick to write Tua off because, other than this point in NFL history, quarterbacks do not come in as rookies and play, and I don't think that is considered enough. And I think he has been fine, and I think he's allowed to take a couple years to become a very good NFL quarterback.
I understand this. This comes with a curse, and they don't have a great track record.
Oh,
No, he's not going to do it.
Don't do this.
He's
But
not
2
gonna
years
do it.
ago,
Don't
2
do it
years
to the
ago,
Dolphins.
I said I believe in Sam Darnold, and I believed in Sam Darnold, and then I watched Sam Darnold play for extended periods of time, and I no longer believed in Sam Darnold. And last year, I said I believe in Kyler Murray, and then Kyler fell off a cliff. But I believed in Kyler Murray. This year, I'm Team Tua.
Well, that confirms all my
I was
suspicions
going to
about
say,
him.
I was already going down.
I am Team Tua. I'm proud. I'm happy.
I mean, I'll say this. They have enough weapons to the point where regular season, I don't know how much he holds them back, truly. Here's another underrated part of them. So I like Mike McDaniel, the guy,
Yes,
the
I
coach. He's never called a play in his life.
Interesting.
He wasn't the play because Shanahan called plays in San Francisco. So that's an interesting little thing there, just to
Yeah.
think about.
Is he going to call plays in
Yeah,
Miami?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So that's just something to think about. I think they're a good team, not a great team. I think they are held back by Tua largely. But I don't know how good of a team they would be even if they had a slightly better quarterback. That you would say, I don't know. Would you say Tua is below league average, Mike? About league average?
I would say below.
Yeah.
Maybe about. It's tricky with quarterbacks, but
Mac Jones is
there's
league
nothing
average.
spectacular about him.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
Maybe
right?
there
Yeah.
is. Maybe they haven't unlocked it yet.
He's below Kirk Cousins for me, and Kirk Cousins is.
Which Kirk Cousins?
We're not
The real,
having this
we're
conversation.
not. The real Kirk
The
Cousins.
real Kirk Cousins, he is below Kirk Cousins, and Kirk Cousins is kind of my benchmark for good quarterback, can't take you to a certain level. You're stuck at a certain ceiling with this guy.
I like
and
that, I
he's
agree.
below that. So his ceiling would be a tick below, which for Cousins we've found out is about the divisional round with a
Yeah.
very good team.
That's fair.
So to a first round of the playoffs, maybe a divisional. My thing with the Dolphins is I think there's a very strong possibility that you Team Tua guys around Thanksgiving could be throwing some shit. Throwing some stuff at us, telling us we got to eat crow. That Tua could bounce back, have a very good, his third season now statistically. Andrew, I think you're right. I don't think he kills them in the regular season, but the ceiling's going to be what the ceiling is. There is absolutely no way I see, barring catastrophic injury or just one of those games that you just can't explain, that he beats any of the top guys in the AFC. So Dolphins I have finishing second in the division. I think they have a good roster. I don't think he kills them in the regular season. But there's a very defined ceiling with him, especially in a conference that we're in agreement this is the best quarterback conference we've ever seen, right?
Yeah.
It's up there. We've
Yeah.
got 7 or 8 guys that if they won a league MVP in a given year, you wouldn't be that shocked if they
Yeah.
were in the right situation.
That's fair.
And 3 or 4 guys I could see taking a team to a Super Bowl. That's not normal. So
Speaking of guys taking teams to Super Bowls, should we talk about Zach Wilson?
I mean, Joe Flacco. I believe Joe Flacco will be on the field week 1. He has taken a team to a Super Bowl.
He
Famously.
has.
he won the
Famously.
Super Bowl,
He won that Super Bowl.
and he was an elite quarterback for that Super
true.
Bowl run.
Yes.
And no other time in his career.
Justin
True.
Tucker carried him to a Super Bowl.
See, the thing with the Jets, is like they've done some nice things recently.
They have
like, I
done
like
some very good team building.
I like some of their draft picks recently. They've done a good job, but like they don't have a quarterback. Like I think their coach is fine. I don't think you can really make too much of a judgment about him already.
Oh, yeah, he's the
Robert
guy from San
Saleh.
Francisco.
Yeah, Robert Saleh. So like they're that team where it's like until they actually prove that they can be good, I'm always going to assume they're going to be terrible. Like they've just been that franchise, that organization for long enough. And like they've done some nice things. They're in the right positive direction. I don't like Zach Wilson. I didn't like him at the time of the draft. I felt like he skyrocketed way too high for a guy who just hadn't played football. Like the season ended.
He was doing other things.
That's true. That's true. Off the field, he's been doing well for himself.
He has been doing well.
He's been doing well for himself off the field. On the field, not so much.
Dude, he's good. Okay, that's too far. At the end of last season, he looked like a playable quarterback. He looked better than Mac Jones did at his best. Like, yeah, the floor's lower, for sure. But he's also in a worse situation. And he's, like, throwing out his mistakes. It's not that they're just, like, coddling Mac Jones, like, where they just keep him behind, like, the Wizard of Oz screen where he's not allowed to mess up. Like, he's at least getting, like, real football experience. Like, I'm higher on Zach Wilson now, before the off-field stuff. That's not being taken into account here, than I was when he was drafted. I was very low on him when he was
Wait,
drafted.
would the off-field stuff like actually affect how you look at it?
No, it wouldn't. But like
Okay.
there's been this giant Zach Wilson hype train in the Twitter spaces of football because of his off-field stuff. Which never mind. You get my point though. Is that I'm riding high on Zach Wilson.
If you don't know what the off-season stuff we're referring to is, look it up. It's a good time.
It's a
Good
fun time.
5-minute read.
Yeah.
I think that Jets fans can be cautiously optimistic that you'll see some progress and then comfortably finish 4th in that division. So, outside of some young players, not much reason to watch. But they're not directionless anymore.
To me,
That's
this
the best thing I can say for
I like
them.
yeah, I like that. Like to me, the season comes down to just seeing how guys develop.
Yep.
Like that's all it is. What do you think, Jake?
I don't really have any. Like the Jets have not been relevant since Rex Ryan, so like I haven't even considered them.
That's such a preposterous statement that the fact that no, you're right. But if you think about it, the last time that organization was relevant, it was Rex Ryan and Mark Sanchez. And think about what those names mean now. That's pretty.
That's
It's
not good. I mean,
not
it's not what
great.
you're looking for.
Wow.
And finally, we have the New England Patriots. I've been saying to you guys all offseason, this is the lowest I've ever been on the Patriots in my lifetime. Like, why don't we look at their offensive coaching staff for a second? So Josh McDaniels goes to Las Vegas. Really good offensive coordinator. I don't know if he's one of the best, ever, but he's a good offensive coordinator.
one of the best of this generation.
Yeah, this generation. So people were like, oh, who's going to replace him? There was Bill O'Brien. He's at Alabama. I'm sure he'd love to be back in the NFL. He's already been here under Bill Belichick. Seemed like an easy fit.
Underrated coach.
Underrated coach. Seemed like it was a great fit. Bill Belichick says no. Matt Patricia has just been fired by the Detroit Lions. I want him to be coaching offense. Joe Judge, fired by the Giants. I want him coaching offense.
Andrew, have either of these guys coached offense before?
No. I mean, I think Patricia he was like the assistant O-line coach his first year, and they shipped him off to defense. Joe Judge at one point was like an assistant wide receivers coach, shipped him off to special teams. But now, after they've gone other places and been the head man and failed, they're going to put them in charge of developing the young quarterback they spent the 15th overall pick on. Guys, the reports out of training camp have been disastrous. It's like they can't get past the line of scrimmage on run plays. They want to try this outside zone, and they're going to implement it with Matt Patricia and Joe Judge. Tweedledum and Tweedledee. So.
Isn't it Tweedledee and Tweedledum?
It is.
Whatever.
My bad.
Whatever.
Not that these two would know.
Not that these two would know. So, I think I like the personnel on offense. I do. The coaching situation is terrible. And the defense, the corners played better in camp than you would think, but they lost J.C. Jackson and didn't replace him. So after losing Stephon Gilmore, not replacing him. So Jalen Mills is the number one corner.
Let's go, Green Goblin. Woo!
The Patriots this year
Super
will
Bowl
finish
winner, Jalen
with,
Mills.
and I hope I'm wrong, I'll go max 8 wins, realistically max 7. Schedule opens up in the middle of the year. They could start 0-4 though, very realistically.
They have a horrendous start to the schedule.
Yeah.
consensus, we
They'll
all
probably
agree.
be out of the playoff picture before November.
Do we
Yeah.
all agree the Bills
Realistically.
win this division?
Well, Jake, do you want to hit the Patriots?
Yeah.
I have something else. I want to
I
add to
have
what Andrew said.
not a. I've just been traumatized by them too many times. I was at the game where Jesse James caught a touchdown pass,
No,
and it was ruled not a touchdown pass, and then the Steelers proceeded. Big Ben Roethlisberger, on the goal line, throwing passes, proceeds to throw a horrible interception. And
The fake spike.
Yeah, dude, Jesus.
It's the old Marino play.
What were you going to say, Mike, on the Patriots?
It was one of the more bizarre and, dare I say, disastrous off seasons I've seen from an organization that people in the sport hold to the highest regard in terms of organizational competence. So I'm not talking about the Jets or the Giants or these bottom feeders. For the teams that have been consistently contenders and are perceived to operate in the right manner and have a good hold on how to build an organization to win Super Bowls, almost nothing they did makes sense. Talking about a passing league, you let your corner walk for what turned out to not be an unpayable amount of money.
Yeah.
You hire two incredibly disastrous head coaches. Just for context here, listeners, Joe Judge oversaw a Giants offense that scored the least amount of touchdowns in the league last year, worst passing offense in the league last year. And they ran a quarterback sneak on 3rd and 10 because their offense had become so incompetent. It was better for them to essentially punt than to run a play and risk. I think they were backed up and risk a safety or a turnover. We're talking about like middle school, like low-level high school JV lack of faith in an offense that, frankly, played at that level for an entire season. So you're bringing that guy in with Patricia, who has very little offensive experience. Andrew went through all of that. And I just have to emphasize the point Andrew made. This is not to pair with a quarterback that already knows what he's doing. You're not adding these guys to a Tom Brady who, let's face it, would be the system himself. He doesn't need an offensive coordinator at this stage. This is a guy that every single snap he takes for the next 2 years matters tremendously towards his development. And a guy who started off on the right foot and now could come crashing back down to earth and by the end of the season may very well be the 4th best quarterback in his division just because of the position he's now been put in. Never been high on Mac Jones' ceiling, but he at the very least had a Kirk Cousins, Matt Ryan-esque feel, and you can win a lot of football games with a quarterback like that. They're now risking bringing that down to an area below competent quarterback level just based on development, nothing to do with the player. And I feel bad for Mac because by all accounts, he's done everything asked of him this offseason, physically and mentally, from a leadership perspective. He's done what he can to take that leap and has been put in one of the worst positions. The last thing I'll say about this is this screams hubris from Belichick to a level I can't remember from a head coach. It's almost bizarre. It's like he's trying to win the Brady battle with the knowledge that he can't win a Super Bowl. So he's like, how can I create the most ridiculous circumstance that if I am in any way successful, I'm so set up to fail that were I to be okay, the accomplishment would be on par with what Brady did. That's like the only thing I can think of for how mind-numbingly horrendous the offseason decisions have been. They drafted a 3rd-round guard in the 1st round to a team that is devoid of weapons in a league where that's what wins football games now. We're to the point where the receivers and the tight ends are no longer icing on the cake. Those are core foundational pieces to any successful team, and they're drafting mediocre guards and bringing in non-offensive guys. I have enough an issue with the team hiring just a defensive head coach to oversee your own quarterback with functional offensive coaches around. Just the head coach, I have a problem with that. We'll get to that with the Bears. But to do it with the whole entire offensive staff and essentially just have a defensive football team without any defensive players on your freaking roster, I don't like Mac Jones. I feel bad for the kid. He is just set up for a miserable season.
I would argue that their draft pick was a strange pick.
Good one, Sam.
Thanks, Sam.
Yeah, happy to help.
All right. That wraps up the AFC East. AFC North. And why don't we start?
With the resident AFC North man.
Yes.
The CEO of the Pittsburgh Steelers fan club. I want to say we need to pump the brakes on the George Pickens hype train. I love it. I hope he's amazing. But if we went off preseason football, George Pickens would be the best player in the NFL, and Jamar Chase still couldn't be able to catch a pass. So it's
Very
been great.
humble of you to start with.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
It needed to be said because it's been outrageous. But with offseason signings, I love that they got Larry Ogunjobi at D tackle to complement Cam Hayward. He is going to have one-on-ones that he's going to be able to win. Miles Jack coming back is great. He just needs a compliment. Devin Bush has not been that, and Robert Spillane kind of has been that, but he does not get the benefit of the doubt because he has been a special teams guy, and he just has that bias. So, like, if he is as good or better than Devin Bush, we don't know, but I don't think he'll start.
So Devin Bush hasn't been great.
He has been. He had a rookie season, great rookie season as starting as a linebacker, and then he tore his ACL, and he has been okay.
Oh, that's a shame.
He's a borderline bust as a top 10 pick.
Yeah, and
I liked him coming out of college.
yeah, I think he was
Can't
fifth
cover.
overall, and the Steelers had the worst run defense in the league last year.
Not what you're looking for.
No. And Steelers have second lowest offensive line payroll, which was glaringly obvious against the Jacksonville Jaguars this preseason. And I want to say, if Kendrick Green's having a hard time with the Jacksonville Jaguars, he's the left guard. He's going to have a really hard time with Calais Campbell or Justin Houston twice a year on Baltimore.
So, Jake, optimistically, if things pan out to a desired level for your beloved Steelers, what do you think the ceiling for this team is? If, let's say,
Yeah.
Trubisky or Pickett, whoever you think ends up taking the lion's share of the snaps this season, plays well within the system, Pickens turns out to be a quality borderline star receiver as a rookie, which I think is a reasonable expectation. Najee has another productive season, albeit the line, I think realistically can't be expected to do much, but he was still productive last year. The defense will be the defense, and Tomlin is going to keep you in the picture almost on his own. With those kind of baseline expectations, were things to sway your way, how well do you think your team can end up doing?
I feel great about the Steelers ending up as second in the division. I think that is complete behind the Bengals, and then the Ravens third, and the Browns after that. The Steelers went into Kansas City, accidentally had like a 7-point lead halfway through the second quarter.
Don't play
And
that
then,
card. They lost 42 to 7.
Exactly what I was about to get into. I just can't. So the Steelers set their cornerbacks, not like Levi Wallace, Akella Witherspoon, Cam Sutton, all individually above average, but I do not think they will hold Chase, Higgins, and Tyler Boyd to few enough points to give this offense a chance to beat them.
Underrated receiver Tyler Boyd.
Yes, out of
Yes.
Pitt. Noted. And I think what hurt most of all last season is that the Steelers didn't re-sign Mike Hilton as their slot cornerback because he can play the run and play the blitz. It was cool seeing him in the Super Bowl, but also signed to the Cincinnati Bengals. I just really cannot see the Steelers beating the Bengals. But, yeah, I mean, I totally see him in the wild card. And, yeah, maybe something happens. Maybe T.J. Watt, scores 3 touchdowns instead of 1. And, we accidentally, win a game in Buffalo.
That'd be pretty cool.
So, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Kenny Pickett needs to be awesome, or Mitch Trubisky needs to not be Mitch Trubisky. And neither of those have been seen.
2 questions for you, Howard. Both about your quarterbacks. Does hand size matter?
No, not at all. However, mobility matters when you do not have an offensive line. And that's why I think the Steelers didn't get Jimmy G. I really wanted Jimmy G, but thinking about it, he would have a really hard time.
That's a good point.
I like that a lot.
That is, and both of those two guys are mobile.
Yeah.
Second question. We as a society decided to forgive Justin Fields of all wrongdoings last year because of the Matt Nagy situation. Does Mitch get the same level of love? Because this is a Pro Bowl quarterback that we're talking about.
This is a Pro Bowl quarterback.
Listen, you did not lie.
I was going to say Mac Jones is a Pro Bowl quarterback.
It's
Mitch
true.
Trubisky's every bit the Pro Bowl quarterback.
I mean, Oh my gosh. And the sentiment last year was like, oh, he got to sit behind Josh Allen, you know. You really got to see how it's supposed to work. And so it's like, I mean, hopefully he's great. But I think Mike hit the nail on the head. We were talking before, and he's like, Mitch Trubisky is a B quarterback. Like, that is exactly how he is, and I couldn't think to describe it better. One thing also...
I think he's a C quarterback.
Another thing about quarterback situations is with Ben Roethlisberger last year, when you were a freshman in college, you were like, dude, I saw with Eli Manning, should have got rid of him 2 years ago. It's literally going to happen to the Steelers. I said, man, no way. Steelers, we started 11-0. Like, what are you even talking about?
I was on that.
Yep.
I hit the
And
jump
then,
on the 11-0 Steelers
That was a
team.
week 11-0.
That was the worst 11-0 team I've ever seen in my life.
And then, I mean, and it showed. At home against the Browns.
Few moments have been as satisfying as seeing Juju get absolutely rocked on national television against a terrible Bengals team.
Hey, you better start cheering for Juju.
I am.
Yeah.
I'm all in this year. As long as he's not doing the TikToks, which by all accounts, he's backed off.
We've escaped the Juju Jackson Mahomes duo.
Hold on. I think the threat of having to do them with Jackson Mahomes scared him away. He's like, if I'm going to do him, he'll get involved. So I have to just not do him.
That's
and he's
valid.
not. And apparently he's playing well. Good reports out of KC. We'll get to them.
Yeah.
Shout out Juju.
So, Jake, I have to disagree. I think where we sit now, and just so our viewers understand this, we're basing all of these predictions on health, right? We're at the point in the season where you cannot predict health, so we're not going to hold each other accountable for a certain player getting hurt or not. Assuming health, which is obviously in football quite the assumption, and it's an accurate assumption. There will never be full health. But barring the Ravens going through what they went through last year, which was catastrophic, I haven't seen very many teams go through that, or Joe Burrow going down, I don't see a scenario realistically where the Steelers are better than either of those two teams. Both teams have significantly better quarterbacks, or as good, or in the case of the Bengals, significantly better weapons. The head coach situation in Baltimore is at least on par with Steelers. The Bengals not so much, but Zach Taylor's not a bum, clearly. And the talent difference, you're right with Cincy. Talent difference in Cincy is enough. And I think the Ravens defensively can be just as good as the Steelers. So I feel strongly that Pittsburgh is slotted into the 3 spot. I may have even put them behind Cleveland were Deshaun to only be suspended for 6. The offseason has developed to a point where I think all of us are in agreement that Cleveland is towards the lower end of the league. Now, with all that being said, Pittsburgh I think is still going to be right around you can no longer finish 500, but they'll be 8,
That's
9,
so
9 and
stupid.
8. It is.
It is.
Can I just say that?
Dude, Jeff Fisher's rolling over in his grave. No more 7 and 9 seasons.
Why do you think he's not back in the league?
I know. I think that Pittsburgh, depending on how the rest of the conference shakes out, could be viable for that last 7th spot in the playoffs. The only issue is you now have another division with 4 playoff contenders in it, which isn't usual. But I do think Pittsburgh's a solid team. Tomlin will keep them in the picture for sure. We'll see what you get out of your quarterbacks. But the place I have to disagree with you on is I think Baltimore is primed for one hell of a bounce-back season. I mean, they have like 3 guys that could win comeback player of the year, just based on what happened last season. And then Cincy, I think we're all on the same page with. Looked pretty good.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the Ravens take. They were in contention for the number 1 seed for way too long last year, given how many injuries they had. J.K. Dobbins is going to be excellent. And, they are going to be a great team. I don't think Lamar Jackson has had too much success against the Steelers franchise, though.
It's only 2 games, though. And they'll steal at least one of them. I won't even say steal. The Ravens are going to be favored in both, so they are winning at least one. So you're not going to get the advantage of sweeping them, regardless of how Lamar's actually played against Pittsburgh. So that advantage goes out the window, and then over the course of the season, it's inarguable that he's the best of the 3 quarterbacks we're discussing if you factor in the 2 Pittsburgh guys.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Yeah, I think this is a big bounce back year for Baltimore, health reasons, but also I just think their offense is young. They have guys that are obviously Lamar, Rashad Bateman missed the first half. Missed the first half of his rookie year. Mark Andrews had a great season last year. Dobbins is coming off a major injury, but he's young, so I think also the fact that they want to be this heavy rushing offense, and they were doing it with Devontae Freeman last year at 35 years old. I think that makes all the difference in the world coming into this year. I don't think they will win the division. I think it will be closer between them and Cincy than I think a lot of people are making it out to be, though.
You could have 2 12-win teams in that
Yeah.
division. Easily.
Yeah.
Especially if the AFC West beats each other up enough that it
Yep.
opens up an extra couple wins for some other teams.
For sure.
Those two. If either of those 2 teams finished as a 1 seed in the conference, it would probably take a little some luck or some injuries within the own division, but it wouldn't be. It's not out of the realm of possibility at all.
Yeah,
because I
definitely.
think it's going to be really tough for a West team to do it. So then you basically have the Bills or one of those 2. Because
Yeah.
we know that no one out of the South is going to pull
No.
that off. So, well, Tennessee did last year, which I think people forget.
Yeah.
Their 1 seed year was
They were
last
the
year?
1 seed last
Yeah.
year.
I feel like that was 2 years ago. Wow.
Pretty weak 1 seed, but a 1 seed
They're the 1
nonetheless.
seed without Henry?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they lost to the Jets. Like, some of their losses were
Oh, it was
bizarre.
horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible
I
losses.
think it
And
was
then
like back-to-back the Jets and some other team that was
Yeah.
injury-ridden or
It's a
something.
horrible loss. It's never a kudos to Zach Wilson.
I don't even know if Zach Wilson played in that
I
game.
don't- that might have been a Mike White game. In fact, I
Yes.
think it was. I think it
Yes.
was.
Damn it. Dude, the Mike White era was electric.
The fact that I even remember his name
Yeah.
is crazy to me. I was like, yo, Mike White. That was a Mike White game.
Yeah. All right. So we got a lot on the Steelers. I feel like the Bengals, we were kind of all in agreement. Like, health is the biggest thing there from last year.
Shout out they upgraded the O-line. That was like the one thing where we were like,
Oh,
this-
no, they're loaded.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
team looks good.
we were like,
They
this
look
is a
really
really
good.
embarrassing. Like, it was like, do you remember the meme that came out when they during the draft, and it was like Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow was throwing the ball to him, but then there was like Joe Burrow was dying,
Yeah.
or it was Joe Burrow having time and throwing the ball to no one.
Yeah.
Well, the meme came true in the Super Bowl, but now they
I
fixed
mean,
it.
they had like 3 starters on the O-line.
They rehauled
like
the whole thing.
yeah.
They stocked up the defense. I'm going to forget the individuals who they did it with, but they stocked up the defense
Yep.
a little bit.
And there's just
And
internal
they-
improvement, honestly.
They bring back those young dudes,
Yeah.
man. Holy crap.
Yeah. No, they're going to be electric this year.
They will-
Then there's Cleveland. They're not going to be very good.
No, they're not.
No.
They're not.
Will
And-
Kareem Hunt end the year as a Brown?
That's a hell of a
That's-
question.
They
yeah.
still have Kareem. Damn, that is
Yeah,
a,
but he's
Yeah.
asked for a trade.
that is
Yes,
a
for
lot
trade.
of
Won't trade him.
moral men, isn't it?
Do you see the picture of someone holding a bag of weed on the sideline
I
during
did
the
see that.
preseason game?
That was Cleveland, right?
That was Cleveland.
Cleveland's in shambles.
Yeah, like they're not going to be good on the field. I think their roster's.
They're not good off the field.
Yeah, they're terrible off the field.
So where?
They're terrible off the field. I just think the whole thing's a mess. I can't. There's no part of me that believes the entire locker room is going to be behind Deshaun Watson if and when he comes back this season.
And to think that the 8th greatest basketball player of all time once said that Cleveland was a city of champions.
Yeah, I think it's
Is
just
that
going
a
to be a
shot
train
at
wreck.
LeBron?
Yes.
Say 8th best player of all time?
It just gets lower every time you talk.
Just unplug your headset.
the-
No
the
one
Cle-
wants to hear you talk.
The Cleveland Browns went from like the beloved team that goes 0-16 every year, loses when Corey Coleman drops a ball at the end in week 17 back in the day of 16 games of football.
Then asked to be traded.
Then has to be traded. To like, they might be the most hated team in the league, Cleveland.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they're the team I'm like rooting hard. Like I'm
Yeah.
not gonna ever tune into a Browns game and be like, oh, let's go Brown. No,
They gave up on Baker. America,
No one blames them
No,
for that.
no.
America's quarterback. Hey, Baker's wife blames him for that.
Dude, he's a Sooner. What are you...
yeah.
What's
What's happened to you?
I can't keep track of you, man. Like,
What's
you've
happened?
come to me and said, I've never hated someone like I hated Baker Mayfield. And now you're like, America's quarterback. So, real quick on the Browns. I think it's going to be a dumpster fire environment. We'll get to this kind of in our tiers. I don't actually think they end up winning 3 games. I think they win 6 or 7. I don't actually think the product on the field will be atrocious. They did add Amari Cooper. Jacoby Brissett can hold down the fort for a little bit. I think over the course of 11, he starts to get exposed, but it's not a disastrous backup position. Now, Deshaun has not looked good in camp. He had a rough preseason, but there's an element of rust, obviously. I think he'll knock some of it off. They'll get him back late. They do have the best running back tandem in the league still. The offensive line, to my knowledge, has not gotten significantly worse. That allows you to play ugly football, keep games close. You do have Myles Garrett on defense, and that factors in for a significant...
He's a hell raiser.
He is.
I have a question for you.
Him and T.J. Watt. That's a good
Yeah.
discussion.
Do the Browns have the best running back tandem in the league?
I mean, it's really good, but it's also running backs.
Right? Like, that's my thing. It's like,
Yeah.
No, but that's not nothing.
No, it's not nothing, but
I up you.
You can-
I up you Carolina's CMC and Deonta Foreman.
Sam,
Chuba Hubbard?
dude.
Deonta Foreman was disgusting for
Dude,
Tennessee
we're
last
talking
year.
about two all-pro running backs in the same backfield.
Would you rather have 2 8s or a 10 and a 6?
I don't think CMC's that significantly better.
Just saying.
2 8s.
2 8s?
2 8s.
Maybe the 10 and the 6.
I raised you Damian Harrison, Ramondre Stevenson.
Actually, in terms of style,
So they're just
very
always
similar backfield. Just
Yeah.
the bootleg version.
It's like how the Jets are like 3 years behind the Giants.
What?
What?
Miles
Anyways.
Garrett, T.J. Watt is not a discussion, and I will not entertain that
That
at
is
all.
a discussion.
T.J. Watt is like,
I have to give it to TJ right now,
oh, dude,
but
you
it's a
don't-
discussion.
oh my God, that is
All right, I got
Okay.
a question for you. We're going to
Talk to me.
find out the bias level we're dealing with.
That's important.
Okay. All right.
Aaron Donald or TJ Watt?
Aaron Donald. He's
All
from
right.
Pitt, though.
Okay.
Like he went to Pitt, so like,
I'm just checking.
That's the
I'm
right
just-
answer.
It was the right answer. TJ's a very worthy number 2 defensive player in the league right now.
He's
but
not Aaron Donald.
He's
Or-
not.
He's not Aaron
No,
Donald.
the
Right
only
answer,
the only
better
person
reasoning.
you can definitively say has a step on Aaron Donald is Lawrence Taylor. Like we're at that point with him, which we've discussed. So,
yeah.
but I think Miles Garrett came out at 20 sack season, and I would not be surprised.
No, I mean, give him
I think
flowers.
he's right there with
Uh,
T.J. Watt as the edge rusher.
T.J. Watt played like either 14 or 15 games last year, though, and like broke the sack record. Then they like
No, he
redid
tied
it.
it. He tied
No,
it.
I know, but watching the Baltimore game, the center snapped it on the ground and he picked it up and then got sacked. And they thought he broke the record, but then they nixed it, and then he had to get another sack that game.
There was some collusion.
That's
Do you
all I'm
guys
saying.
know the story of how Strahan broke the record?
Tell us.
Yes.
So you know who won? You know Michael Strahan is the one that is now tied with T.J. Watt for sack record. So he was at 21 and a half, and the record was 22. And he was boys with Brett Favre, and they're playing them the last game of the season. I don't know who won, but towards the end of the game, the outcome's not really in doubt. And Favre calls a naked bootleg to Strahan's side and takes a dive when Strahan comes up to him, and Strahan gets credit for the sack.
Wow.
And that breaks the record. So,
Wow.
if we're talking legitimacy, and I'm a Giants fan, and
That's-
I'm a huge Michael Strahan fan.
Yeah.
Huge Mike. I watched all the old Super Bowl movies and stuff for those Giants teams. He's great. Talking pure legitimacy, he did have an extra game, but he didn't play it. To your point, he got hurt. So he played roughly the same amount of games. Pure legitimacy, TJ may have staked as being the sack king.
It's pretty
for
big.
a single season.
Pretty big asterisk next to the Strahan sack record.
Yeah, that's
It
a.
is.
Yeah.
The clip's hilarious. Favre literally just lays down.
All right, let's take a quick break, and we'll come back talk about the AFC South.
Fantastic.
All right, AFC South. Is this the most boring division in football? It might be. Let's start with the most exciting team in this division, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Brought in
Easily
Doug
the most
Peterson.
exciting. Yeah.
Doug Peterson, Trevor Lawrence year 2. They got a top tier receiver in terms of pay and free agency. And Christian Kirk. Yeah, in 21 million a year.
$21 million a year. AJ Brown got 20.
Travis
as far as I know,
Etienne
25.
missed his whole rookie season. He's back. I'm kind of excited for the Jags. They're going to put up maybe 5 wins this year. They might do it.
I like the Jags.
I like the Jags.
Now, quickly becoming my favorite broadcaster, Mr. Nick Wright, has the Jaguars
Quickly becoming.
has the Jaguars as a sneaky last playoff team.
I noticed that today.
Now, I think that is a smidge high,
Maybe in the NFC.
maybe a couple smidges high, but I do think Lawrence, almost the flip side of Mac Jones, comes into
Yeah.
the worst situation imaginable, but gets a vastly improved situation going into year 2. Polar opposite of Mac. I think he has a big year. I think they put up some points. I think they give up even more points.
But they have a feisty season. They're worth watching for the first time in
Since the
first
Blake
time in a
Bortles
decade,
era.
aside from the one flash in the pan Saxonville season.
That was a fun year.
That was a blast.
That was hilarious.
We were one Sunday away from a Case Keenum, Nick Foles Super Bowl. That
Yep.
or no, sorry,
Blake
Case,
Bortles, yeah.
Case Keenum, Blake Bortles Super Bowl. That
Yep.
was real.
That was.
That would have been so fun.
I think it would have been more painful if the Patriots had lost to the Jaguars in the AFC title game and losing to the Eagles in the Super Bowl.
What's hilarious to me is that you had a Final Four of Brady, Foles, Keenum, and Bortles. And Brady did
didn't
not win the Super Bowl that year.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey,
But
you know.
he won the year where he had to go through Breeze, Rodgers, and Mahomes 3 games in a row. Just football math does not work
Yeah.
out.
No, but in the opposite of the Mac Jones situation, like they hired a coach that's a known like guy for just breeding like young quarterbacks. Like he made Carson Wentz look like an MVP candidate.
But was that Frank Reich?
Was it Frank Reich?
But he just got Frank Reich.
That's true.
And looked
That's
okay.
a good point. He
To
looked
his point,
okay,
looked
yeah.
okay, but he didn't look like he did.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
You got to at least
Yeah.
collaborate.
No, Doug,
effect.
he's
So-
a fine coach.
Andy Reid guy, like Super Bowl winner. So I actually really like it.
No one cares about that Super Bowl.
I'm just happy to see Doug Peterson.
I don't care about this. What Super
That
Bowl
was
are you talking
basically
about?
the equivalent of what the Warriors just won.
Shut up.
You
What?
won. You won by being the most competent team in a crappy field.
The sad part is that's true. At Matt Patricia, the defensive coordinator that year, who gave up, 42 points?
Well, maybe he's better at offense. Can't have it both ways.
Oh, my God.
All right, so the Titans are going to take a step back. Tannehill sucks. Derrick Henry will rush for 2,000 yards.
Does he? Is
So-
this the Derrick Henry injury? Is
So
this the, fall apart?
I worry about they traded A.J. Brown, right? And so now the weapons on the outside, like who
Are
do you go
so
into a
bad,
game where it's
yeah.
like, why not just put 8 in the box, make Tannehill throw to Treylon Burks, who's been
Treylon Burks.
terrible in camp apparently, or I don't know, one of their other random
I
receivers.
actually don't know who the other receivers are.
I
don't
don't.
know.
I don't.
You could like name it.
Oh, Robert Woods.
Robert Woods. Okay,
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
There you go.
So it's Robert
Not
Woods.
bad.
I mean, Robert Woods he's a good receiver, but like he's a really good complementary receiver. Like you want him on
I
your
agree.
team, but he's not the guy that's like, yeah, Robert Woods,
Number one
elite
receiver.
offense, number 1 receiver, hurrah,
I have to
Huzzah.
say,
huzzah.
Indra, the one thing I have to say about your point, saying your thing about Henry getting injured is fair. I'm willing to give him one more year because it was kind of a freak thing that I don't think.
Yeah, it was like a broken ankle, right? Like,
It was like a small fracture in his foot.
Yeah.
I don't think it was the type of thing that will take years off his career.
Mhm.
I don't know anything about that stuff. But the other thing I would say is, yes, they lost A.J. Brown, and yes, defenses had to pay attention to him. But a little part of me thinks that got a little overblown. I don't think defenses came into Titans games taking away from stopping Derrick Henry to stop that passing game. I think they were like, yeah, A.J. Brown's pretty good. We'll throw a corner, our best corner, and maybe a little help on him. But
yeah.
we're still
Yeah.
going to roll 7, maybe 8 up in the box every snap.
I think the
And if we lose to that, we'll just lose to it. I don't think it changes so drastically that Henry can't put up, maybe not 2,000, but 15 plus if he stays healthy.
is Tannehill, Malik Willis, one of the favorites for the first quarterback replacement job.
I have a hard time with that one because I think didn't they just pay Tannehill.
They did. The only
Over
scenario,
Brady.
the scenario I could say is the Lamar Joe Flacco,
Yeah.
where the team around him is performing fairly well, but Tannehill has regressed to a point where he is so bad.
Do you think there's any like Tua Fitzmagic?
No,
No.
I
No,
don't.
no.
I think the wheels would have to fall off for Tannehill.
Okay.
Which I'm with Andrew. I don't actually think it's going to happen. I think he's just
Yeah.
competent enough to hold on to it for at least another year.
Like Malik Willis is also like a 3rd-round pick.
Yeah,
Like Tua's the 6th overall pick. Like
Yeah, that's fair.
there was organizational pressure to get him
There
into a
was.
game, right? So
there will be fan pressure
there will be fan pressure.
because Malik looks good enough, but
He looked
Come on,
Mike
man. It's
Mike
Mike
Vrabel
Vrabel.
does not
Mike
care.
does not care.
Does not care.
That's fair.
Then there's the Texans, who I think they're in a better spot than people would have thought a year ago.
That's
Yep.
fair.
Like, because Davis Mills he looks like an NFL quarterback. How good he is, I don't know, but he's an NFL quarterback. Like they've drafted, I guess, decently well. I mean, they have some guys, but
they're still going to stink.
They're still
not
gonna
worth
stink.
Too much of our time.
No.
But you are right, a little bit. And then I think the Colts are a incredibly boring potentially overrated team that by default will win the division.
That's fair.
Yeah.
And if they do so, Michael Pittman better have a big season because I am relying on him in 2 fantasy leagues. So, shout out Michael Pittman. Have a big year, buddy. Jonathan Taylor will rush for a bunch of yards. Matt Ryan will
Be better than Carson Wentz.
throw checkdowns, not making interceptions, and
Yep.
get sacked whenever someone breathes on him.
And maybe beat Jacksonville. He might
He might be
He might beat Jacksonville.
So bad. I hope we don't see people start criticizing Jonathan Taylor when his numbers inevitably are down this year, because now they have a quarterback that they actually trust to make decisions in the red zone. Not Carson Wentz.
I think Taylor's a little overhyped.
Yeah, because he got all of the touches in right. Like,
Yeah, and he was incredibly efficient, but
Yeah.
their O-line is really good. And as you said, like they were giving him all the chances to get going throughout the game because that was their only chance to put up consistent offense. So yeah, I mean they're going to make the playoffs. I think they will be the weakest division winner, and they will maybe they'll mess around and win one playoff game.
They could win a first round.
Yeah.
yeah. I could see him going deeper.
A good O line and a good defense.
Yeah.
I think I'm higher on them than you two are, but similar like.
You don't have them beating one of these top flight.
They don't have the,
contenders,
they
yeah.
don't have the ceiling. They don't
Yeah,
have the ceiling.
that's
So
fair.
But they could put the scare in somebody just
Oh,
by
absolutely,
how the team
yeah.
is constructed. Yeah.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
right.
like you're not like, oh, we get to play the Colts, like that's a great matchup for us, but also you're also like, well, like on any given day they could beat another team in the AFC because they are that good, but you don't fear them the same
like
way.
The Bears, the Cody
You're not
Parkey.
walking in there like we could play as well as we could play today. Like the Bills last year.
Right.
We
Yes.
could play a perfect game and we could lose.
Yeah.
That's scary. The Colts, a lot of teams in that conference once you get into the playoffs will be like on our best day, they just can't keep up.
Yeah.
That's fair.
All right, let's move on to a much more
Let's have
exciting
some fun.
division.
That's some fun.
This is the highlight of the show.
This is the AFC West. Now,
War zone.
so if we go back to the end of last year, ever since the end of last year, I kept saying, it's the Chargers' year. It's the Chargers' year. And then you know what they did? They brought in J.C. Jackson. And I was like, it's still the Chargers' year. Right? They're getting better. Then they go out and trade for Khalil Mack. And live on the show. We broke that live on the show
Did.
With Hank.
with Hank. And Justin Herbert he's that guy. Very good at football. They have a deep receiving core.
Confirmed good at football, Justin Herbert.
Great running backs. I think they're the team to beat in that division, personally. Now, they're not the reigning champs, but I think on paper they're overall a better team than Kansas City. That's what it is. They're the best team in that division.
I agree. Like, the difference between Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes,
Be very careful with what you say next.
as large as it may be, it's larger probably in Mike's mind than it is in anyone else's mind, is not easily insurmountable to that of the gap between the rest of the roster makeup.
Yeah, I'm fine
Yeah.
with that.
So
I thought you were going to pull Marcellus Wiley and be, there's barely a gap. There's no gap.
no.
He's just as good as him.
No, like
It's close enough
Patrick
that,
Mahomes had
that
the worst
roster.
team and dragged him.
Yeah,
just
yeah.
Right.
Like we forget they didn't make the playoffs last year.
Right.
We do forget that.
Please do forget that.
Like we just talked about, it never happened. Not we, but
And my argument here for Kansas City winning the division, which I think will happen, is talked about championship medal. That team is made up of all kinds of championship medal. With the head coach and the quarterback have won a Super Bowl together, they have represented. He's going to say something about the Bengals game last year. That doesn't mean you can't have a bad moment, okay? But
oh, you mean like Kevin Durant?
Kevin Durant's a made of championship medal. What are you talking about?
To my face that he is not.
No. Anyway, my argument would be championship medal or no championship medal. We can joke around about that phrase all we want. Experience you cannot argue with. There's been high-level winning experience from that team, that quarterback, that coach, that roster. I don't think I do agree the Chargers have a better team. I don't think it's a massive advantage. And I think that the coaching gap is one that's quite significant that people are overlooking. Now, you argue for Staley being aggressive if you're pro or against that, whatever.
Pro.
He is liable to lose you a couple games during the
Yeah.
season. Andy Reid is not. Andy Reid will win you a couple games you probably should not win. Now, he's not perfect, but in Kansas City in this last run, I don't have many instances where I'm blaming losses on Andy Reid, as opposed to Staley, who you can argue kept them out of the playoffs last year with some of those decisions, gutsy as they were. Okay? And then offensively, I think people are sleeping a little bit on Kansas City to this extent. When you have a receiver that is as good as Tyreek Hill, especially with a young quarterback, it can be very hard for that quarterback to be comfortable going away from that receiver. Now, Mahomes was by no means was he completely Tyreek dependent, but if you are able to stop the Chiefs from taking the top off the defense with Tyreek, as a lot of teams did with that cover 2 defensive look that Tampa showed in the Super Bowl, and you body at Kelsey a little bit and double team him underneath, which a lot of teams did, Mahomes would have some trouble with getting to his third or fourth progression, with having the patience. I think this team will almost this roster. You still have Kelsey, so you still have a bona fide half to double first ballot Hall of Fame player on your offense. So you're not lacking a top flight number 1 option. But I think the rest of this offensive roster is talented enough to win a lot of football games, but not talented enough that Mahomes can be lazy, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
He can't rest on his laurels. It will force him almost to be perfect, to be patient, to get through his reads, to take what the defense gives him. Tom Brady's best never had a Tyreek Hill. He had a lot of Juju Smith-Schusters, he had a lot of Sky Moores, and he had a Travis Kelce. That's what Tom Brady's best teams were built of. Dominant tight end down the middle, a bunch of dudes that ran the right routes, knew where they were supposed to be on the field, got there. A couple guys that could get deep if you got lazy and let them, like Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I think the offense is actually quite well balanced this year. I've heard good things about Isaiah Picaro, I think is the kid's name, the running back, the rookie
Pacheco,
running back.
yeah.
Yeah. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is not a bum. He's not a superstar like some thought he might be, but he's a solid player. The O-line, not elite. Not going to be the difference, I think, in them losing a bunch of football games. So, I think removing some star power from Kansas City added some detractors to a team that a lot of people were looking for reasons to doubt. I actually go the other way. I think the offense could be even more efficient. It might not be as top-line terrifying, but effectiveness-wise, I don't actually expect much of a regression. And I think over the course of a season, the winning culture and the experience in Kansas City is just going to be enough to get enough that they probably shouldn't even have gotten from L.A., that they'll win the division by a game or 2. But L.A. is one of these teams that almost borderline feels snake-bitten at certain points because they just can't quite get there.
Yeah.
And I think it shows up again. And I do think that the Chiefs have the better quarterback, especially in big situations, especially down the stretch. And I think that will be just enough to squeak out a win by half a game, win by a game. And they end up with home field in the playoffs. LA does not.
So I agree with you on Mahomes. I've said this the entire time. Like, if he's as good as we think he is.
Yep.
Losing Tyreek Hill it doesn't actually matter.
Yeah, it won't crush him.
It's not like he's going from Tyreek Hill to a bunch of bums.
No.
Like, he still has NFL receivers. I would throw in one other thing, which is the Chiefs were the first team in the division last year. The Chargers were the third. And so that makes a difference in 3 games over the course of the season, whereas the Chiefs get the Bucks from the NFC, and then they get who they get from the AFC North.
Schedule-wise?
Yeah, schedule-wise.
Okay.
They get the Bengals, and then they get the Bills. The Chargers, on the other hand.
Those are 3 really, really brutal. You could lose all 3 and
Yes.
still be a good team.
On the other hand, the Chargers
Legitimately.
get the Falcons, the Browns, and the Dolphins.
Okay.
So I think those 3 swing games
Yep.
also are really important to keep in mind.
That's fair. I had not looked at the schedule.
Yeah.
So that's a very, very good argument for
Because,
LA.
I mean,
Yep.
we mentioned the 3 teams that Kansas City's playing there are
That's
championship
murderer's row.
count.
If
Yeah,
any of those 3 wins the Super Bowl, no one's shocked.
exactly. So just
Yeah.
something else to
Okay,
throw into that.
Fair enough.
Now, I've been joking for the past couple weeks about Chiefs going to come in 4th in the division. They're not. They're a top 2 team in the division.
Yeah.
who is going to come in last between the Raiders and Broncos?
It's the Broncos.
It's tough. I'm going to go Broncos. I'm not as in on Russell Wilson as everyone else is.
Russell Wilson aside, that's just a good Raiders team.
I think the Raiders,
legitimately a good team.
I love their offense is going to be
electric.
It's going to be electric. Their offense this year, like Derek Carr is not Joe Burrow, but they have that level of weapons.
They do,
and so that's absolutely massive. And they bring in a new coach. And not that Rich Bisaccia as the
Pit Boss Rich.
Yeah, as the interim coach last year was bad, but now they bring in McDaniels, who's an offensive coordinator, bringing in a new system that slot receivers like Hunter Renfrow typically do well in, tight ends like Darren Waller typically do well in, and Devontae Adams is going to do well no matter where he is.
He's the best receiver in football.
He is.
And you can slide him into any system, and it will not make a difference.
If
you need him to, he's 100 yards and 60. He's 100 catches and 1,600 yards.
It's like I look at the Raiders and say that has top 5 offense written all over it. I like the Broncos a lot. And the thing with them is they've been like a 500 team, maybe a little bit under 500 the past few years. And every year it's like they just don't have a quarterback.
Yep.
And now they have Russell Wilson. So that's something to keep in mind. They also have a 4th place schedule. Also helps them a little bit compared to the Raiders with the 2nd place schedule. So it's so tough. Like we're going to look at the team who comes in 4th in that division, and they might not make the playoffs because they might be like 9-8. But we're going to be like, they are better than at least 1 or 2 of the teams
easily.
getting into the playoffs.
I agree.
So, and I like Russ a lot as well, but I do like Russ.
I'm enjoying the being a Russ detractor right now. It could very well come back to bite me. I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm going to roll with the Broncos, and that's essentially a hard overhead pick because my head doesn't know what to do because it's so razor thin. So screw the Broncos. But you're right. There are some similarities to the situation Russ is walking into. Similarities with the situation that Russ is walking into compared to the one Brady walked to in Tampa. Decent defense, although not the level of Tampa's, but decent. Good weapons. Losing Noah Fant, I don't think it's a small thing. They lost Tim Patrick.
Mm-hmm.
So Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy are good receivers. Those are not A receivers. Devontae Adams is worth more than both of those receivers. That's not nothing. Darren Waller, I think, is better than either of those two guys. So we'll see. Would it shock me if Denver skyrocketed to 2nd in the division, especially if there's a couple injuries midseason? Mahomes has another twisted knee that cost him a couple games? No. Mm-hmm. But as we sit here today, the top 2, I think, are the top 2. I think the continuity on the Raiders, the improvement and continuity. The team didn't change a whole ton. They bring in a better offensive mind. Carr and Devontae played together in college and, just as importantly, have been training together every summer their entire careers.
Yeah.
So I think they pick up immediately. I don't think there's any sort of...
Forgot about that.
Yeah, I don't think there's any kind of adjustment period for them. I think they pick up right where they left off. And then Max Crosby and Chandler Jones give you a fighting shot to get off the field towards the end of games, especially in shootouts. To where I think the Raiders, you can comfortably say the Raiders are a solid pick for 3. Any of those teams finishing anywhere in the division, based on the circumstances of the season, would not surprise me.
Yep.
That's fair.
Couple injuries here or there, and the Chiefs could end up 4th, and I wouldn't be shocked. And they could still be a 10-win team or a 9-win.
Exactly. I wouldn't be shocked if the Chiefs come in 4th.
No, and I think the Chiefs can win the Super Bowl this year, as I do the Chargers.
Mm-hmm.
But it wouldn't shock me if either ended up 4th just based off how the season plays out. I've never seen a division like this. This is crazy.
Yeah.
This is like the opposite of the NFC East division a couple years ago.
If you take any of those teams and drop them in the NFC, they're at least among the top 4 teams most likely to win the NFC Championship.
Yeah. Speaking of the NFC, the much weaker conference.
Yeah. It's a boring conference, too.
It is. The NFC East.
Hey.
Let's get them out. Let's get them out of the way. The Giants.
We'll get to them in the tiers, but little sneak peek. Cautiously optimistic, glimmer of hope. I like Dable. I like the GM. I like the weapons. I like the young guys on both fronts. The 2 tackles. Oh my God, I'm forgetting my guy's name. The Georgia edge rusher who was a rookie last year, Azeez Ojulari, and Kayvon Thibodeau. Like those 2 off the edge. I don't like much else on the defense. The offense, I like the weapons and the 2 tackles. O-line's a little better. Daniel Jones is terrible. Hopefully this year exposes that so we can just move on and get a real quarterback. But
Saquon bad
I
player
think-
never left.
I
Yeah.
do think Saquon big bounce back year. If he's healthy, huge bounce back
Huge.
year. I mean, big
I've
time.
heard like all like the stuff you want to be hearing.
Big
Yeah.
time statistical. I mean, he'll push for 2,000 yards from scrimmage if he plays 15 games. I think that's very reasonable. I think even with that, Daniel Jones by the end of the year, we're pretty confident we need to find somebody else.
Yeah.
But I think organizationally, you'll start to get a different feel. They'll be competitive in games they haven't been in. They'll win a couple that they haven't won recently, and just against other bad teams where they don't blow the game.
Yeah.
There's little improvements that can be made throughout the season. That's the stage the organization's at. I think as a Giants fan, I will be very optimistic heading into next season when we can probably, hopefully, finally cut Kenny Golladay and just not have to worry about sitting a $70 million receiver all year.
70?
70, dude.
Yep.
It was one of the worst contracts I've ever seen. It was like the parting gift of Dave Gettleman, who you could make a legitimate argument was the worst GM in NFL history in his Giants stint. So that's where I'm at with the Giants. 5, 6, 7 wins max, but little life, which will be good to see. It will not be the team last year, as I mentioned, quarterback sneaking on 3rd and 10.
I feel like Philly is kind of the opposite, where it's just all question marks. Everything about it's a question mark.
High ceiling. Low
I was gonna
floor.
say, I think they could be
Super high-
very good.
Super
I think
high
they could be
ceiling.
very good
I
team.
think they could be very good.
Low floor.
Low floor.
I think they overpaid
I
A.J.
don't know.
Brown.
I do too. Do we know if Miles Sanders is good? We know he's talented.
does-
No, we know he's good.
yeah.
We don't know if they're going to use him to an
Yeah.
extent you can get everything out of him that you should
Corey
be able
Clement
to.
is a very, very shiny object in that locker room, apparently.
Kenneth Gainwell's been getting a lot of
Gainwell.
work.
They just brought in Trey Sermon off waivers from San Fran.
Miles
Great
Sanders
receiving
must have
core.
like insulted Sirianni's wife or something. Dude. There's something outside of football going on there because it makes no sense.
Great weapons for old Jalen Hurts.
Yep, Goddard, Smith. People forget about Devonta Smith.
Yeah.
Could have a decent,
He
very
was,
decent
he was
number.
really good last year.
They
Yeah.
did unfortunately trade away Jalen Reagor. That might hurt them. That could hurt them.
I mean, we'll get to it when we talk about the Vikings.
Didn't he end up
Yeah.
in? He did end up with the Vikings.
We're going to see who's really better now.
It's true.
Yeah, gee, we really do. That's a big question mark remaining.
So
Sir.
I have 2 questions. So we were talking about the Giants. Can they finish above Washington?
Yes,
I agree.
they could. Do I expect them to? Hit or miss. But
I would. I think they. If I were to put money on it now, I'd say the Giants finish above Washington.
Just the Carson Wentz situation for Washington is brutal. Like they paid like what 25, 30 million bucks for him. Like it's bizarre to me because he's proven time and again over the past few years he's just not that guy. And like
he couldn't get it done in Indy.
is Taylor Heineke good? Not
Yes.
particularly. Like he's how much of a drop off is there from Carson Wentz to Taylor Heineke?
Not a $25 million drop
It's
off.
exactly. So I like their receivers. I like a lot of the pieces on their defense, but their quarterback situation is terrible.
And their running back situation isn't good either.
Their running back situation isn't great either, but
Sadly, not
sadly,
good.
yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Did you guys see the picture of Antonio Gibson
No.
in the offseason?
I heard he doesn't look great.
Well,
So
Brian Robinson was outplaying him in camp.
I was more speaking
Yeah.
about Antonio Gibson than Brian Robinson.
No, but
actually.
I'm saying,
Yeah.
like,
No,
so,
he was, yeah.
Oh, really?
like Antonio Gibson has been hyped up as this like, oh, big running back, can play in the receiving game, and he's getting outplayed by J.D. McKissick now for going on 2 years, and then his rushing role was going to be diminished this year because Brian Robinson's coming in, and he might come back within like a month or two, crazily enough.
Wow.
So like Antonio Gibson feels like
So,
he's on the outs.
I'm not a body shamer. But when you're an NFL running back and the expectation is that you come into camp in great shape, and a picture surfaces on the internet of you standing there at a party in a button down that is literally bursting at the seams trying to get around your belly, that is not a good look when you're coming into an in-camp competition and expected to lead an offense in the NFL. That was Antonio Gibson. No one is surprised that Brian Robinson outplayed him. no one I think connected to the team is surprised at that point. Brad Robinson's situation is just really sad. We're glad he's okay.
Yeah.
He'll be back soon. Andrew drafted him in a dynasty league, so I'm sure that will pay dividends. But not super high in Washington. They're kind of in a... The Giants are in a place where they could have a bad season, and there's good things to look forward to. Washington probably isn't going to be super optimistic going forward unless they make another drastic move at quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. Now, the Cowboys. Are they coming in first?
Probably, and I don't care. Because they're not doing anything past that. They're going to lose in the first round.
Put Philly in the first spot.
I hope
It's more
Philly...
fun. It's more fun.
I hate the Cowboys and the Eagles. And I would love to see the Eagles.
The Cowboys just signed
Finish
Jason
first.
Peters, of all people.
Well, because Tyron Smith's
Tyron
out for
Smith.
I know,
half
but
the year,
Jason
yeah.
Peters, like...
He's 40.
No, I'm from Jason Peters'
Yeah.
perspective. Why are you, like...
Oh, yeah.
He's a name.
doing?
You can put him on those game day programs. Little new left tackle.
I think CeeDee Lamb has a big season for you fantasy buffs. Also, Dalton Schultz, take him around your 5-6 round turn. I know everyone's already drafted their teams. I don't care about the Cowboys at all. I don't think they're interesting. Watch Micah Parsons. He'll have a good season. Zeke sucks. Dak will put up a bunch of garbage time yards. They'll beat bad teams. They'll lose to good ones, and they'll lose to a lesser team in the first round of the playoffs.
And Quandre
It's
Diggs
their
over.
season story, man. Like, there's nothing interesting about them.
Well said.
Okay, that works.
Well
for me.
said.
Great.
All right.
Speaking of uninteresting teams, the Bears.
I wouldn't say they're uninteresting.
Yeah, that's fair.
That division just...
It's just...
NFC stinks.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about any of these teams.
Yeah,
They're
well,
just boring.
So you mentioned before, I forgot, we were talking about the Patriots bringing in
yes.
bad offensive
Yes.
coaches. So the Bears obviously fired Matt Nagy, famously the former offensive coordinator of the Chiefs, if you can believe it. And they bring in Matt Eberflus, the Colts defensive coordinator, to help develop their young quarterback, number 11 overall last year, Justin Fields.
Bad hire. I can't say that.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
this is
Bad
my
optics.
thing. I don't want to crap all over a young first-year head coach who, by all accounts, is well deserving of the opportunity.
Yeah.
So I hope he does well. The only gripe I have is with a young quarterback in today's league, would only hire an offensive guy. That's my only thing. Aside from that,
Yeah.
Eberflus could be a great leader, a great coach. The roster just stinks.
Oh my, yeah,
It's so bad. Justin Fields, if he's able to have a glimmer of hope season, it would equate to essentially having a second-year breakout. That's how
Yeah.
bad the team is. If he has a season where you're just like, oh, he's pretty good at football. Even if his stats stink and you're
Yeah.
just watching the game, you're like, he's pretty good. We'll probably be fine. That's like him throwing for 4,000 yards to me because the rest of the team is so bad.
it's true. Even just the offense. They
The
have one.
offense
They
is-
have one receiver.
And he's a B. He's a
Yeah.
number 2 or a number 3. Their running back, who everyone thought was the only good player on the offense, apparently doesn't fit the system anymore, and they're like thinking about cutting him. Like, it is
Really?
crazy. Yeah, Montgomery apparently is
Yeah.
on the outs with them.
He's just
Their
not
O line
fast.
hasn't been that good in years and years and years. Like it's a little bit better now, I think,
Yeah.
but
No. Did
that's-
you see the preseason?
no. I'm saying the fact that it's better now is just like it's terrible.
There's a better chance he ends up being David Carr than Russell Wilson, based off of
Yeah.
purely the offensive line. They could ruin him. This team could ruin him.
Yeah, it's
It's that bad.
I don't know how they went through an entire offseason and like the biggest name they got offensively was N'Keal Harry.
And he's
N'Keal
only
Harry.
a big name because of
Because he sucks.
yeah.
Because he sucks.
It's like an Adler type situation.
Aguilar's an NFL player. Good camp for Nelson Aguilar.
Good.
But yeah, like how did right? We talked about the Bengals. Bengals, you have one job this offseason. Improve your offensive line. They did it. The Bears, just do anything to help your offense.
The Lions.
Like, there's 11 positions. Upgrade 3 of them.
yeah.
They upgraded,
No.
minorly upgraded maybe 1 or 2 that we don't even know
Yeah.
about because it's such a minor upgrade, so no one cares.
All right. On the opposite end of the spectrum, team who has real hope, the Detroit Lions.
Let's
Lions
go
are
Dan
good.
Campbell all in.
Lions are good.
Didn't watch Hard Knocks. Heard it was great. Shout out Aiden Hutchinson. Did see this clip.
Mm-hmm.
Great rendition of Billie Jean.
I saw
Yeah,
One of the
that.
best rookie performances I've seen on Hard Knocks.
Very
Very
impressive.
impressive. Dan Campbell. Bunch of quotes that I I didn't think I'd ever hear a human being utter, but they're there.
They look good. Like they've just got.
They're going to be a
They
great
feel
5
like
and 12 team.
they feel like at the very least they're like a competent NFL team. They're
Yes.
not good, but they're
This
a
is
competent
progress.
team.
This
brought
is
it-
progress.
Brought in Deshaun
Like
Elliott.
you can look at all their
Texas guy?
you can look at every possession on the field and you're like, you know what? It's an NFL player.
That is an NFL.
That's an NFL player.
No, there are no Nikhil Harris.
Can't
There are
do
no
that
N'Keal
with the
Harris.
Bears.
You cannot do that with the Bears. The opposite actually is true with the
Alabama
Bears.
might have more players that you look at and be like, that's an NFL player than the Bears have.
That's bad.
It's so sad. It's so sad. I like Justin Fields.
I do too. Like, I want to see him be good.
Like yeah.
the
like-
NFC needs a good young quarterback so badly.
It's
We
like if he was
just
on
can't
pretty
find
much any other team, there'd be a chance. Yeah, the Lions they're 5 and 12, but they're moving in. What they're setting themselves up for is if they ever get a quarterback.
it. They are. They're
That's-
doing exactly what the Bengals did with Burrow, which
Yep.
is build out a decent a decent roster around him, and then slide the quarterback in, and he takes a putrid team. 2 years in, they're a really good team. They're like, how did that happen? It's because the team's already built around
Yeah.
him. You just
Yeah.
need to slide the piece in.
Exactly.
And Bryce Young or CJ Stroud could very well be that type of quarterback. This could be the last year for Detroit really being bad. Because they're not going to be good on the field.
Let's see how patient they are. Full Quinny Ewers comes around.
Sam, just...
Do you want the Lions to be terrible
Do you
forever?
want us to talk about the first 2 snaps?
Talk about the last 60.
They played UL Monroe.
So.
All right,
Raiders-
okay.
Okay,
all right.
we're not talking
Hold
about
on.
Texas
We
football
are having a Texas segment next week.
Deal.
next week.
We
Bama
have
week.
we
Bama week,
We
baby.
have the Bama week segment.
Yep.
We
Lock
will
it in.
discuss
I'll send it off then.
the savagery that is going to take place in Austin. Bama will beat them so bad they might back out of their SEC deal. My poor sister is going to be at the game in the student section, and I'm going to be watching a massacre on a football field. Bama might beat them by 50.
Anyway.
Anyway, the Green Bay Packers.
Again, they're going to be good. I just don't really care.
I don't
yeah, I
need it.
don't care.
I
don't
just
thi-
want to watch Aaron Rodgers choke in the end of the
Yep.
season and be done with it.
So the
Me too.
Vikings.
So the Vikings.
Do
I
we
mean-
buy it?
Great. Like, they're
No,
going to be better.
I don't buy it.
They'll be better.
They'll be.
They'll make the playoffs in this field,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
They should.
Think
They
they
And then
should.
they'll lose to the
Should.
49ers because the 49ers can run the ball. Like,
Yeah, that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Yay.
What do you do?
Hold on. Big fantasy interest in the Vikings, though, guys. Right? I mean, Kirk Cousins will keep you afloat if your starter gets hurt. Dalvin Cook will win me a league.
Will they though?
Justin Jefferson, actually, he's going to win me. Is it 2 leagues or 1 league? I don't know. Justin Jefferson will have a very good season. Should Sam have picked him 3rd overall? Absolutely not. But
Time will tell.
great fantasy receiver, and the new offense, incorporating some Cooper Cup style
Yes.
role, may be big for him.
Irv Smith.
Irv Smith could have a good year. Alexander Madison, great,
Adam-
maybe the best handcuff in the league.
Adam Thielen, people just acting like he's just not relevant anymore.
I mean,
Though
is
he still is.
yeah.
He's really not.
Yeah, he's really not
He's
relevant.
like an 850, 900 yard receiver. So play him if like your first 2 options are hurt.
He's fine. Like I'm feeling he's a nice player.
How high did you draft him, Sam?
I didn't draft him.
You didn't?
I don't know because I already just Jefferson.
Okay.
I didn't know you were that. You thought that far ahead. Fantasy football.
All right. Well, that's the NFC North. The Packers are going to win that
What a
division.
That was
boring
riveting.
division.
That was so.
Terrible. Like the Lions are the most fun team in that division.
South.
That was just Attack of the Clones, but only the Anakin and Padme stuff.
That's a good way to put it.
Well, what does that make the NFC South then? Because it's not much
I was
better.
gonna say they're
It's
not much better. Like,
I mean, they have
is
Brady.
Baker gonna be feisty in Carolina? Maybe.
So feisty.
Is Brady gonna like back ass his way into the playoffs, into a great seed, and probably win another Super Bowl? Probably.
I think we're gearing up for the Atlanta Falcons to have like big time Kyle Pitts numbers, like all time. Like you're watching this guy and you're like, oh, he's going to be a Hall of Famer. Falcons lose 41-17. Like
Pitts has
Chris Paul
225.
no,
with
so
the
it's
3 touchdowns.
so like Shohei Ohtani, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
The classic Angels tweet is like Shohei Ohtani goes 5 for 6 with 2 home runs, a triple, a double, strikes, or if he's not pitching, right? Another double. Angels lose 11-4.
There was one that
Like, no.
actually were like him and
Trout.
Trout
Yeah.
both hit home runs back to back or something, and they cut the lead from they cut the deficit from 7-4.
Yeah,
So bad.
that's what the Atlanta Falcons are going to be this year with Kyle Pitts and then, depending on the week, Drake London / Cordero Patterson.
Let's go.
Let's go. The Saints.
Jameis, baby.
I just
Interesting, but not interesting.
Yeah.
Michael Thomas, buy or sell?
I hate Michael Thomas.
Slant merchant.
Like, I'm sorry. I just, like, I never liked him when he was good, and now that he's just, like, the epitome of a diva receiver who just, like, gets hurt, shows up to training camp, fights with teammates, tells everyone they can't guard him, and then doesn't play. It's just like, you can't beat top-end corners one-on-one. You stunk up your postseason performances. Like, we've gone past you, dude. Like, just show up and play or shut up.
now here's a question.
That being said, he could be very good. He's good at the football, so
Now,
maybe he has a bounce back year.
is there any chance we see less Taysom Hill this year?
I hope so.
Because if we do, that changes my thoughts on the Saints. That might give them an extra win or two if they use Taysom Hill less.
Addition by subtraction.
Can I have like a 15-second rant on something?
Yes.
I've never been more frustrated with the hubris of a coach in one single moment than Alvin Kamara sitting at 5 touchdowns on, was it Thanksgiving or whatever? Or no, it was later in the year.
It was
Christmas.
like
It was Christmas. Sitting on 5 touchdowns. The NFL record is 6. They're at the 1-yard line. And Sean Payton brings in his goddamn golden boy toy stupid ass thing, whatever the hell Taysom Hill is to that team. It's like, look what I can do. I can turn Taysom Hill into an NFL player. And gives him Kamara's 6th touchdown. Kamara then goes on to score his 6th touchdown. That would have been the NFL record-setting 7th touchdown. And Sean Payton trying to prove to us that he is this genius for creating Taysom Hill, who has done nothing productive in any meaningful game.
Nope.
Just, I can't get over that.
Yeah,
Like, let your star player have his Hall of Fame moment. That's the moment. Gale Sayers still gets remembered for that 6 touchdown game. Like, that's his moment to have for the rest of his life. That game, those cleats might go to Canton. Like, it's no small thing, man. And to throw yourself in front of that, to prove that you're off the cusp experiment bullshit is more important than what your player is putting down on the field. I couldn't. I was watching the game, just like swearing at the TV, and I don't even like the Saints. I didn't have Kamara in fantasy.
I had Kamara in fantasy. I was not very happy.
I had no stakes. It was just that it bothered me that Sean Payton, because he's always had that attitude.
Yeah.
You won one Super Bowl, man. You should have won numerous others. You and Drew Brees actually ended up being, I think, underperformed and were disastrous in the postseason for the last decade of your partnership. But no. Oh, I found Taysom Hill at BYU, guys.
He actually from BYU?
Yeah, he
Yes.
can throw, he
No
can run,
way.
and he can catch. He was really good at BYU.
Yeah, I imagine.
God, I hate
Yeah.
Sean Payton, too. I don't like the Saints very much, man.
Me neither.
Screw the Saints.
Me neither.
They're going to be like a 8-9. Yay, good job. 9-8. Nice.
Who's their coach now?
They
Dennis
promoted their
Allen?
defensive coordinator, Dennis Allen, to head coach.
You want to know what his record is in the NFL?
What?
I don't know the exact number, but I know that he has coached over 30 NFL games as a head coach.
Really?
He has not won 10 of them.
That's tough.
Ooh, 8-28.
With whom?
There you go. I don't know, but I think, like...
He was the head coach of the Raiders from 2012 to 2014. Not a very good team, but like...
Percentage-wise is one of the worst NFL head coaches ever.
Yeah, there's always something weird about when you promote like a coordinator to head coach, and like he's still going to be the coordinator essentially.
Especially in this sense, because it didn't feel like they went out to find a head coach.
No.
It felt like they threw in a placeholder for Peyton to come back to.
That
feels weird.
It felt like they were blindsided by the Peyton thing.
Yeah,
That's like
fair.
the best way
That's
to describe it for me. I don't know. The Bucs are gonna run away with that division.
Yep.
It was looking bleak until they brought Brady back. Until Brady came back, it was looking bleak.
Dude, I don't know. They might have been able to win the division without him.
No, but
Not
that's
be
saying
contender,
something.
but yeah,
that's
like,
saying something.
yeah.
Then there's the Panthers, though.
They'll be worth watching purely because Baker Mayfield's attitude makes him worth watching. Nothing he does on the field is worth watching.
He's so annoying.
But
Hey, they
you
play
literally
Cleveland
just
week
called
one.
him America's quarterback like an hour ago.
Sarcastically.
Didn't sound sarcastic.
It did not sound sarcastic. I believe if there's one Panthers game you want to tune into, it's week 1.
Home.
Yeah, he said he's going to
At home versus Cleveland.
He said he's going to F up the Browns. And what I love is this is quintessential Baker Mayfield. he will win a slogfest, terribly quarterbacked, brutal to watch football game against a team with their backup quarterback. He will probably have no business winning said game. Will back-ass his way into a win. And then get up on the mic and talk the talk that only like a Tom Brady has the right to talk.
That's valid.
And just throw shade at the whole city of Cleveland for not believing him and doubting him and throwing him aside and in and in and out. And then from there, he'll win 4 more games and everyone will be like, yeah, you are what we thought you were. Which is, nice. Your attitude is what keeps you relevant. Your Case Keenum, that's it.
Real quick, if there's one thing, here's a great potential storyline for this year that could happen. The Panthers finish with a better record than the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
That could definitely happen.
Definitely.
I think they'll be
That would
around
be-
the same, but
That would be a fun story, though. That would be a very fun story.
and again, Baker could finish 6-11. But man, the Browns finished 5 and 12. Those words you're getting flung.
And honestly, I would be fine with it in this case, considering who they brought in to replace him.
Yeah.
All right, NFC West. The Rams are still that team. And then I feel like, I don't know, there's not much to say about them. Like,
Shout out Stan Trotray for spending money outside of the Rams.
they brought in Allen
Rams are-
Robinson.
the
Their
Rams are
offense
good.
might be better.
So I am very, very high on the Allen Robinson.
Me
He
too.
is a mainstay of any Mike Randall fantasy football team this year.
Really?
I think he does a lot of the red zone work. Kupp scored a lot of touchdowns, but the outside dimension that Robinson adds, A, could open things up for Kupp, but B, it gives you a real red zone style threat, a more traditional red zone style threat, a la what Stafford played with in Detroit when he had Megatron and just had a fade ball guy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he scores, if he stays healthy, big if,
Yep.
but I think he scores, I think he's right around a little over 1,000 yards and scores 10 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I think fairly comfortably. I think
It's also
Kupp has another huge year, but he'll have. I think Allen Robinson is a huge addition for what they want to do offensively.
I thought he was older than he is.
Yeah, it's
Only
also the
29.
first time he's going to play with a good NFL quarterback his entire career. Blake Bortles, Mitch Trubisky. I mean, Justin Fields last year is a rookie.
Yeah, he was a
the terrible-
1,400-yard, 13-touchdown guy with Blake Bortles.
Yeah.
Jesus.
And Matt Stafford, as we know, receivers eat with Matt Stafford.
Yeah, the one
He
thing is
can
there-
put up numbers.
There is that elbow thing with Stafford that I've been
Yeah,
hearing out.
there is.
And now, so
Tendonitis.
yeah, so he came out today. Now he's always played through stuff. Like, I'm not totally worried about it.
It's not nothing.
It's not nothing though. Yeah, they also brought in Bobby Wagner. I forgot about that until recently.
Oh yeah, they just casually brought in one of the
in-
best defensive players of our generation.
That's
It's just not a big deal.
For like pennies on the dollar, right?
I think I was actually a decent
No,
amount.
it
It
was
was a
$50
deal.
million.
Oh no,
decent
it
amount.
was the how do they keep paying these people?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you now have a defense where you have to get through Aaron Donald, to get to Bobby Wagner,
Yeah.
to get to Jalen Ramsey.
That's
Yes.
terrifying.
That's not
I
bad.
don't want to do that.
You've done a fairly good job building
Now,
your team.
do we think the 49ers can do that with Trey Lance at
Von
the helm?
Miller's still there?
I think
No,
they could,
Buffalo.
to the extent they could, it would be just running bulldoze behind Trent Williams right through all 3 lines. Like, the physical aspect of the 49ers is what they'll have to lean on. I like Lance as a breakout candidate. Andrew, I know you're a little lower on him, so I want to hear what you have to say. But I think the 49ers could challenge for the division, especially if Stafford's elbow isn't right. I think the Rams are better, but it's close enough here or there. I personally have them as a fringe Super Bowl contender. I think they're going to be a really good team. The defense is loaded. Nick Bosa, people slept on him for comeback player of the year a little bit because of how well Burrow played, but start to finish from that season from Bosa last year, he's a 14.5 sack guy. They do have Fred Warner right behind him. It's a really, really well-constructed football team with a coach that, aside from gripes about him late in seasons, is a very good head coach and wins football games.
Don't ask Andrew.
No, Andrew would agree.
Yeah.
Just don't give him a lead in a Super Bowl. Then.
Yeah.
Or
fair.
don't
You're
put him
asking
in,
too much
don't
at
put
that
him in any stressful situation in the playoffs.
Yeah, and he's a great coach.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we're talking about regular season standards.
Yeah. So here's my thing with Trey Lance is so they put in 2 future first round picks to move up in the draft to take Trey Lance. Then year 1 they go Jimmy, and then it's like, okay, it's the Trey Lance year. We're all in. Except we're not going to get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo, who I mean, his contract at the beginning was like $25 million. Now it's like $6.5 million. I think they restructured it to. The reports on Trey Lance have been all over the place in camp, all over the place, and they're bringing back Jimmy. What does that say about how they feel about Trey Lance? Right? Why are they panicking about the guy that they traded 2 future firsts to move up for? And are we going to see Jimmy in the middle of the year? And if we see Jimmy in the middle of the year, forget about it. Like Trey Lance, we saw with Tua and Ryan Fitzpatrick. And obviously, yeah, Trey Lance is young.
Team 2.
But I don't know. Like, this is a team that has gone to Green Bay twice and beaten Aaron Rodgers. Did they go into Green Bay the first time, too? I can't remember. But they've beaten Aaron Rodgers twice in the playoffs with Jimmy Garoppolo. And yeah, he's not the guy that gets you over the top. But I think he was at least consistent. And I don't know what you're going to... Like, I don't think we're going to know going into any given game what they're going to get with Trey Lance.
Okay.
That's fair.
And so I think the fact that they seem to be... The whole thing with the quarterback situation feels like they've been panicking. Like, they were going to draft Mac Jones.
I was going to ask you about that.
They were going to draft Mac Jones. And then they didn't. They, like, changed their mind for the last second. It was like Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch didn't tell anyone who they were going to take. And, like, they flipped to Trey Lance at the end. And now they're worried about Trey Lance. They're going to bring back Jimmy Garoppolo and pay him $6.5 million to be a backup. It just feels like there's some level of panic from within the organization. I can't imagine Trey Lance feels good about bringing Jimmy Garoppolo back. Like, what other situation have you seen where an established starter who goes deep in the playoffs year after year, has made a Super Bowl, all of a sudden just backs the guy up and then comes back the next year as well? Right? Like, when Brady took over for Drew Bledsoe was gone the next year. So what's, like, there's something brewing there, in my opinion.
Okay.
I just told him if it's Brian Windhorst.
Oh.
Something going on.
What is going on in San Fran?
I think the team's good enough. I think you can stick it. You guys see Blue Mountain State?
No.
Half-blind orangutan. Blue Mountain State fans would get that. Half-blind orangutan back there. And they're going to be able to pilot that team into position to upset someone in the playoffs as they have.
Okay.
That would be my take. And I think the ceiling with Lance gives you the opportunity that were he to hit, you have a guy that could get you over the hump. Were he not to, you have a guy that you know can get you far enough.
Are the Seahawks the most boring team in football?
No.
Well, they're not worth watching.
Yeah.
So, like, no, because you just don't watch them, so you won't be bored.
Unless you like turnovers. Unless you like turnovers. Drew Lock will probably have a bunch.
And dancing.
DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are sorry, fellas. Like, it's just tough breaks.
Yeah, you hate to see it, honestly.
Learn how to run some routes.
But you know who's a team we can all love and trust?
Oh, damn.
The Arizona Cardinals.
And their quarterback. Who?
Yeah, Colt McCoy?
No, not Colt McCoy. they're a studious quarterback.
Yes.
So studious.
Who evidently is quite the Warzone player.
That was...
You see that he brought his gaming headset when he was calling plays?
I did.
That was very funny.
That was awesome.
It's like, okay, yes, it's a bad look for Kyler. It's a worse look for the Cardinals.
A way worse look
it's a way worse look for the Cardinals. To put that in the contract.
Ooh, let's play one of my favorite games. Who do we think leaked it? Cardinals or Kyler Camp?
I feel like the Cardinals did. I think the Cardinals did.
I think it was Kyler's people.
So those contracts are public record.
Mm-hmm.
So a very good chance someone else saw that in the league filings and was like, whoa.
Gotcha.
That's not normal. Leaked.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, 5-alarm fire in Arizona.
Okay.
See, my thing with it being the Cardinals is, yes, we're paying this guy a ton of money, and he wasn't good at the end of last year. But we're working on it. We're gonna throw this into we're being responsible here. We've determined that the issue is not he's a bad quarterback, so he doesn't study, and we're gonna put this in his contract because they're stupid.
Just so the audience can have it perfectly clear to them. The Cardinals put a clause in Kyler Murray's contract that required him to do 4 hours of independent film study away from the team per week. That is an unprecedented clause, a literal homework clause in a $200 million NFL contract. completely unprecedented.
Yep.
And as we're discussing, incredibly bad look for player and team. And I'm with Andrew, worst for team, but talking about like high school crap.
And
man,
in the
like
clause it
homework.
said that he couldn't be doing that study while also playing video games.
Yes, they had to clarify that he can't have the film on one
Right,
screen
right.
and his Warzone run on the other.
No
screen. That was
multitasking.
important. There's no multitasking. You're watching
Yes.
film.
One thing I quickly want to say on the Cardinals here is Cliff Kingsbury.
So bad.
Terrible coach.
So bad.
Terrible coach. That's it.
Well, what part of the year are we talking about?
I mean,
First half of the year.
first half of the year, he's like just passable enough. NFL head coach. Once you get to like November, it's a bleep show.
It's bizarre how poorly they adjust throughout the season
Yeah.
since
It's-
he's been at Texas Tech. It's crazy.
Real quick, final thing that's bugging me about Kyler Murray.
Go.
So first of all, his agent for actually signing that contract with that clause in it.
Yeah, right.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah.
Kyler Murray's first press conference after that came out. You know what he did?
Yeah, he listed his accomplishments, right?
Well, so yes, but he's also like, why are you guys, as in the media, why are you guys saying I don't study, and like, why are you guys like
hate that,
making out like the media is like creating this false narrative when it's like your own team
Yeah.
said you don't study enough
In a publicly available document.
in an
Those contracts
unprecedented
go to
thing.
the league office. Anyone can view them.
Really?
Yeah, the whole league, and everyone does. That's potentially how it was found out. Well,
Yeah.
Andrew, I do like your point that the Cardinals basically put in a get out of jail free card in the contract. That,
Yeah.
Hey, we did everything we could. Our hands are tied here. The kid's either going to study or he's not.
No. All right,
What a joke. That
Yeah.
was just one of the most bizarre organizational moments I've ever seen.
and that's the NFC West
And
God,
the
that
NFL.
and the NFL.
That conference sucks.
So bad.
Like there are a few good teams. They're not that interesting.
Used to be
Yeah.
a stack. Yeah.
Yeah, it used to be loaded.
Now
Man, the 49ers, Seahawks heyday, man.
Shall we?
Now
Shall
we
we
can-
tier them?
We can all agree on that. We can all agree on this tier list.
I like that, Cohen.
All three of us, we came together. The brain trust.
Shall
came together.
Start at our worst tier or our best tier?
Worst.
Worst.
Let's start bottom up. Build from the
So,
bottom.
we have
why,
6
why don't you?
tiers.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, say the tiers
I
first.
can. Yeah. We have 6 tiers. We have hot garbage, glimmer of hope, bubble teams, confident playoff teams, contenders, and favorites.
Can I clarify what each one means real quick?
By all means.
Just so we're all on the same page. So, hot garbage
Speaks for
speaks
itself.
for itself. Not a ton of clarity. Glimmer of hope, quick example. We talked about like the Giants. Obviously, we'll see them at that point. But more than likely not going to have a great record. But there are aspects of the season that the fan base can look to for the future to be hopeful in the name.
Yep.
Bubble teams, I believe that's the next one, right?
Correct.
Bubble teams, in or out of the playoffs, but they're not going any farther or any lower. They're going to be a 7 and 10 to a 9 and 8, and that's kind of the range. Not real interesting, but not terrible.
Even better than 9 and 8.
10 and 7.
Yeah,
Bubble
yeah.
teams, right? So then comfortable playoff teams. These are teams we're pretty confident are either going to win their division or are good enough to make a playoff run, divisional round, maybe a conference championship, not much farther than that. But teams that are likely to get to the playoffs, but with a defined ceiling in the playoffs. Then we have our contender stage, slightly flawed teams that were things to break their way, could win a Super Bowl. Things were to not break their way. We still think comfortably in the run towards the end of the season, but not quite the top tier. And then our favorites are who we believe, based on paper right now, with the circumstances as they are today, assuming health, are odds on more than likely to be the Super Bowl matchup. So it's an NFC and an AFC team, and we will get to those.
Beautiful. Cohen, anything to add?
I think you guys covered it.
All right. Hot garbage. We have the hottest of garbage in Cleveland.
Yes, we
have Houston. We have Seattle. And we have Atlanta.
Yeah,
I don't think.
I feel like self-explanatory. Do we put the Bears in hot garbage?
No. There's hope.
I don't
They're
know, man.
so on the edge. The only reason I think we have them in glimmer of hope
is because if Justin Fields can show a pulse this year,
Yeah.
that position is just so important that were he to do anything productive, there's something.
So glimmer of hope is obviously the Bears, the Giants, aforementioned, Jacksonville, the Jets, Carolina, and Detroit.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
I think Detroit has a lot of hope. They're all hope.
Detroit out of those teams feels the closest because, I mean, granted, you have to find the quarterback, but if they do,
Yeah.
right, they feel one piece away from being a much, much better team than they are currently.
Now, bubble teams is our largest category. We have Arizona, the Saints, Minnesota, Washington, Philly, Denver, Raiders, Titans, Pittsburgh, Patriots, Miami.
Just a bunch of middle-of-the-pack teams.
Yeah.
Just, I mean,
And that's what most of the NFL is made up
Yeah.
of.
Yeah.
Fans like to fantasize one way or the other. The majority of teams have a good roster, competent leadership, okay NFL caliber quarterbacks that can only take you so far.
Yes.
And you'll be stuck with those ceilings.
Our confident playoff teams, for example, starts off with Dallas. We don't necessarily think that Dallas is a better football team than like the Raiders, but we are confident they will make the playoffs more so. than
Yes,
the Raiders.
we are. So it's not always necessary. It's as much circumstance as it is actual talent.
Correct.
In fact, I will strongly state the Raiders are a much better football team than the Dallas Cowboys.
Yes.
Yes. Dallas Cowboys, Baltimore Ravens, Indianapolis Colts, and the San Francisco 49ers.
yeah. And the Colts there, it's like they're going to win their division by default. We know they're a good team,
Yeah.
but they're not anything more than that.
I do have to say, of that group, if 3 of those teams made a conference championship, I probably wouldn't be shocked. Be
Yeah.
impressed, wouldn't be shocked.
And it wouldn't be the Dallas one.
It would not be Dallas. If Dallas wins a playoff game against a bad team, I will be impressed with their season. But I think the NFC East is so bad that they get in.
Yeah, that's fair. Contenders. We have the Packers, because we have to. The
Yep.
Bengals, the Chargers, the Chiefs, and the Bucks.
I pushed for the Bucks to be in favorites, but we ended up just going 2 teams for favorites, so that's fair.
I'm good with it.
Which are the Bills and the Rams.
I think we covered it there. The 2 most well-balanced, talented teams in each conference.
Now, before we get to Sam's send-off by Sam, quick Super Bowl pick. Like 30 seconds or less of reasoning. Saboteur. It's a 2/3 majority. We're going to do this, Sam.
Fine. I'll pick a Super Bowl team.
Do you want Mike to go first while you think of one?
No, I have one.
All right.
I don't have to think of one. I'm already ready to go.
Yeah.
So,
Go ahead.
do you want me to go? Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, Sam.
It's the Bucks. Dude, Tom Brady's going through family issues. This man is going to come in locked and loaded. He knows it's his last year. He knows you don't bet against Tom Brady. That's like one
No,
of my
I know you don't bet against Tom Brady.
Dude, and
That's
I
going
know
to be Andrew's pick, too.
and I know it's annoying, but it's just going to happen. And he's going to be like a 4 seed and they're going to fucking win it. And it's
All right.
going to be insane.
Now, God, I hate having to be this guy because he kills me every time I do this. This is not an indictment on Tom Brady. Tom Brady is the most terrifying killer in the sport has ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
My only response. I do think the team around him has gotten worse. The O-line is really banged up. That is not nothing. Retirements and injuries.
It's fair.
Gronk is gone.
It's fair.
That's the best tight end ever out the door.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
You never watched
Godwin-
Prime Zach Ertz.
Shut up, Sam.
You're earning points with me here, Mike.
Godwin banged up. Okay? Will he be back for most of the season? Hopefully, but still banged up. Not nothing. Evans, hamstring issue. That's been a thing for his history. Okay, so we have injury issues on the offense.
Yeah.
The defense took a step back last year. I think they lost Sue. They're just...
Yeah.
They've gotten a little bit worse.
Yeah.
Right? I think when the 2 teams were on the field last year, the Rams and the Bucks, and Andrew and I think, agree on this. The Rams were a clearly superior team that Sunday and had one of the more bizarre meltdowns I have seen a team have in a playoff game just to allow the Bucks to get back to tie the game.
Yes. That's
And they ended up scraping away a win. The Rams did. So for me, and I'm fine with you picking the Bucs because of that MF for wearing 12. That any given year he can go win you a Super Bowl.
Yeah, he can.
But I think assuming health, if things play out, I think the Bucs have gotten a little bit worse. They're a little bit older. They're a little bit more banged up, and there are a couple teams in that conference. There's one team in that conference I'm really confident is better than them. I think a couple others could be.
So who's your pick?
For the Super Bowl? It's going to be the same pick for the next 15 years. It's the Chiefs. What do you mean, who's my Super Bowl pick? The Super Bowl runs through them. It's run through them for 4 years.
And
they still have that guy.
They beat the Rams?
Can they beat the Rams?
I'm saying it's like that team that you think they
yeah,
face.
I think they beat the Rams.
Okay.
Because of 15.
That's fair.
And I am actually a believer in that the more balanced approach will force development from Mahomes that will, to a degree, elevate him to the style of play. There will always be a more explosive, spectacular element. But the methodical, patient, cut, like death by a million cuts that Brady perfected, I think Mahomes works his way towards. I'm never going to say gets there because that would be disrespectful to Brady.
Yes, it would.
But Mahomes will mature and develop to a point that the offense is more well-balanced. The defense is not great. They didn't make any huge upgrades, but I don't think it's an Achilles heel. I expect that the loss in the playoffs last year, the way it happened, I do not think Mahomes is the guy to go away. I don't think that makes him tighten up in that moment next time. I think he just comes in that much more dialed in. Now, is this the best Chief team of his tenure? No, it might be the worst. But as long as there's Andy Reid on the headset, a good supporting cast of receivers around him, a defense that won't kill you.
Yeah.
I'm going to ride 15, and in the next about decade, that'll mean my Super Bowl pick will be right about a fifth of the time, fourth of the time. He'll get 3 or 4 more. So I'm okay with those odds. It's tough to pick Super Bowl winners. If I just roll with him, I'll get 4 or 5 the next 10, 12 years, and I'll be chilling.
That's cute. That's
Andrew?
cute.
Let's see if the Pats fan can pick the Bills. Let's see if he has it in him.
No.
He's picking the Bucs.
Think so?
Yes, I think so.
Yes, I'm taking the Bucks.
Yeah, of course he's taking the
Of course, I'm taking the Bucks. Now, I'm going to give you a non-Tom Brady division pick. The Chargers. I've been on them all offseason
To win the Super Bowl.
to win the Super Bowl.
I like that.
I've been on them all offseason.
You like them more than the Bills?
I think that
To
Justin
win
Herbert
the Super Bowl.
to win the Super Bowl. Yes.
You can get plus odds for an AFC West team to win the Super Bowl.
Listen, I
think there's only one that can do it.
I've been riding with
Broadening your horizons.
I've been riding with the Chargers all offseason. Oh, you think I'm just going to back off now because of little Josh Allen and Sean McDermott in Buffalo? No. Justin Herbert's that guy. He's that guy. He's him, even.
There's only one him, dude.
I know it's Tom Brady,
And
but
he wears 15.
Gabriel Jesus.
There's 2 hims. That can't be a thing, but it is.
we're gonna put Mahomes in Brady's category. That's a little much.
Sure should are.
It's a little much.
For his 5th year in the league,
Lord
sure
help
as
us.
hell. Hey, man, it was crazy that LeBron was going to pass Jordan, too. Look how that played out.
That was crazy that Brady was going to pass Montana. I thought that was...
He passed Montana like a decade ago.
He passed Montana when
this.
whatever idiot on the Seahawks sideline called that slant pass.
Yeah.
What a disaster.
What a time.
What a time.
What a time. What a time to be alive. Tom Brady's winning his 8th. And that's it for the NFL preview. And that leaves one thing. It's time for Sam's send-off. By Sam.
He's sent off.
Presented by nobody for this week.
Nobody for this week.
But
you never know.
you never know.
If
You
you're
never know.
If you're a
There could be a
local,
sponsor down the line.
down the line, we've got some stuff in the works.
Got some stuff in the works.
Dude, you could have scored an NIL deal if you kept
Hey,
your
you can
athletic
score it
career
for us.
alive.
Yeah. All right. Take it away, Sam.
So, when American sports go away for the summer, and I know that baseball's still technically happening.
Yeah, but
Isn't
that's
though the Red
becoming-
Sox aren't good.
Okay.
becoming less of an American sport.
You look towards the European sports
Oh, God.
for peace, for serenity. And they did not provide as of late. There have been some of the biggest gaffes and shit shows I have ever seen on all different levels of just like how teams are made up. So first of all, I told Andrew about this. I don't know if you heard it, Mike. The F1 race, today's Monday, so on Sunday, it was the, where were we again? Jesus, I should know this.
We were in Maine, Sam.
No.
Where was the race?
Oh, it was in Zandvoort. In the
Well,
Netherlands.
naturally.
Max Verstappen's home Grand Prix. And Ferrari, who are known for messing up, as you can see in a previous episode, decided to pit Carlos Sainz without changing all 4 of his tires. He comes in, and there are only 3 tires ready to be put on his car, which is like the basic thing that like a 4-year-old knows about cars. It's like, oh, there's 4 wheels. So that happened. So that's number 1, because that's just like a kind of
Andrew definitely knew that as a kid. Big truck guy.
big truck guy.
That's true.
But
this is true.
It's getting to the point with Ferrari where it's like it's just sad. So the next one is probably one of the weirdest sports stories I've ever seen. This is regarding the French World Cup team. France.
Oh, this is awesome. I know this one.
France, who obviously they won the World Cup in 2018. They're looking to repeat this year in Qatar. The World Cup starts in 78 days. The first part of the story is that Paul Pogba just hurt his knee and elected to get surgery, which means he's out for the next 60 days. So he'll have 18 weeks, or 18 days to get into World Cup form as the heart of their midfield, which is a concern. Speaking of Paul Pogba, his brother has gone like estranged and is currently suing Paul Pogba. It's not suing. It's a blackmail. He's blackmailing his brother with information that he's not a stand-up character. And the information is allegedly video evidence of him hiring a witch doctor to place a curse on French teammate Kylian Mbappe.
This is Paul Pogba placed the curse.
Paul Pogba hired a witch doctor.
To place the curse, yes.
And you know what Paul Pogba's response was? It wasn't, I didn't hire a witch doctor. It was, I did hire a witch doctor, but to prevent me from getting hurt, which he just did. It's chaotic. I've never seen witch doctors involved in like a mainstream international sports drama. I'm so confused by it. So that happened too. And back to F1, the craziest contract thing I've ever seen. So there's a team, their driver retires, so now there's an open seat. The driver for the team Alpine, which is a French team, he then leaves Alpine. He tells them, or he doesn't tell them. He just goes and signs with the new team and doesn't tell anyone at Alpine. And he essentially, they found out when the new team, Aston Martin, tweeted out, we're excited to announce that we agreed to deal with Fernando Alonso for the 2023 year. And his new team didn't know. Alpine then responds and promotes their youth driver, Oscar Piastri, who's Australian. They do this at like noon American time. Oscar Piastri's sleeping, wakes up to find out that he's been promoted, and tweets out, I will not be driving for Alpine next year. Because he secretly signed a contract with McLaren on July 4th after McLaren forced their underperforming driver, who they are replacing, who technically had a contract through next year, to apologize to their entire factory and promise to be good next year, even though they already knew they signed this Australian kid.
What? Oh my god.
It was bizarre. It was super, super crazy. So it's all this. It's the dust is starting to settle now, but in the moment it was crazy.
Also, shout out Rush. Great movie.
Great movie.
Great movie.
We watched it the other night. Let's go. Fantastic film, even.
It is. It is. Can be considered a great film.
That's all I have.
Can I do a quick add-on?
Go ahead. UFC?
Very painful news coming from my new favorite sport. My favorite fighter, Kamaru Usman, the pound-per-pound king, making a run for welterweight GOAT status. He was one fight away from tying Anderson Silva for the most consecutive wins in the UFC with 16. He was fighting Leon or Rocky Edwards. Usman dominates the entire fight. to the point where the commentary team and myself watching the fight are saying this could be it for Leon as a title contender. And Leon Edwards is a great fighter. Way past deserving for a title shot that he got against Usman. He looked terrible. Little feisty in round 1, actually took Usman down. First time that had happened in his career. Outside of that, Usman drowned him and had Leon's corner telling him to stop feeling bad for himself going into the 5th round. He looked like his soul had gotten ripped out of his body. But because this may be the greatest sport in the world, and I am quickly coming to that opinion, because in no other sport does Kamaru Usman, dominate an entire fight, take the soul of his opponent, and then said opponent in the last minute, as everyone is writing his obituary, throw a left high kick and fold said undefeated champion in half as he collapses unconscious to the floor. Usman, I did not think could be knocked out. He was the real, I'm just getting into MMA. For me, the guys I've watched, he's the one that has felt the most invincible in terms of a KO. I've seen him cracked against Gilbert Burns. I've seen him go to war with Colby Covington. It never felt like he could have one of those, the lights go off, the body goes limp moments. He got caught. If he can get caught, anybody got caught. But Leon threw the left high kick, one of the greatest comebacks in MMA history, one of the greatest knockouts in MMA history, one of the greatest moments in MMA history, and as painful as it was to see your favorite fighter collapse, enter the shadow realm, as one might say, it was cool to see Leon Edwards win a belt. And Usman has handled it like a champ. I've been very, very impressed. Both have been very professional, great sportsmanship. It's everything you could want from the sport. You have your great undefeated champion who has held that crown well, an overlooked, deserving title challenger. Turned out to be a great fight. It seemed to be a one-sided affair, but because the sport is what it is, it's a never say die. You literally always have a puncher's chance. Leon has one of the all-time great moments in the sport's history. Very few men more deserving of said moment, and it's setting up what will be a great trilogy fight for the welterweight gold. Usman now, I think it kind of reinvigorated the hunger for him. He was starting to look ahead, starting to think about changing weight classes, doing a boxing match. I think this takes him back now to being the best welterweight in the world and maybe the best welterweight of all time. Every great champ who's fought enough championship-level fights has had this moment. I have no doubt Usman will respond. I think he defeats Leon in the trilogy fight. But as painful as it was everything you love about MMA with two great representatives of the sport on a great card. Great night of action, quite painful at the end, but also everything you love about the sport. Coming up, we just had another great challenger fight. Cyril Gahn knocked out Tai Tuivasa. If you haven't seen it, go watch the YouTube. It's a great 8 minutes of your time. Fantastic little bout. And then coming up next weekend, not a great card, but we do get Hazmat versus Nate Diaz, which will be an hilariously entertaining war of words and potentially a pretty fun banger in the cage, although I do expect Hazmat to win. Sorry if that was a little long. The Usman thing had me all riled up, but MMA, guys, I'm telling you, got to get into it. No other sport can it go like that. Can championships change hands like that?
It's fair.
And there you have it. The NFL preview, plus more. What more could you ask for?
What more could you ask for except a little NFL, a little soccer, and a little combat sports?
It's great to be back in the studio.
It is.
It's a monstrous episode, just under 2 hours.
Let's go.
If you have any
Jam-packed.
questions, feel free to email us. We'll take listener questions.
We will?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why
Sure.
not? Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Email sposman at bowden.edu. That's SPAUSMAN at Bowden, BOWDOIN.edu.
Also, if you're looking for a good time, same email applies.
And with that, thank you guys so much for listening. If you're on YouTube or wherever, leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment, a review. Tell your friends about this podcast if they like sports or if they don't like sports. I don't know.
Or if they like MMA and just tell them to fast forward to the last.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You get a good 3-minute,
Yeah.
uneducated
You'll see worse shit on
rendition of
TikTok.
what just happened to the last fight card.
You're gonna make fun
Exactly.
of Ferrari. Script in the end.
All right. Thanks so much, guys.